Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 15th of December. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. The Shin Bet Security Service today revealed the arrests of 5 suspected terrorists over the past 2 months, including a female suicide bomber who planned to impersonate a pregnant Jewish woman and blow herself up in Tel Aviv. Here with more details on the cell is IBA's Aryeh O'Sullivan. Aryeh.
Thank you, Erin. Yes, the Shin Bet, in a joint operation with the IDF and police, have uncovered a terrorist cell in the West Bank that was in the midst of planning horrific attacks. The cell was made up of 4 Palestinians from the town of Atil near Tulkarem, all in their early 20s. They were able to recruit a 31-year-old woman from Jenin, identified as Yasmin Sha'aban, to sneak into Israel disguised as a pregnant Jewish woman with an explosive belt under her clothes. The plan called for her to obtain an entry permit on medical grounds. The terror cell and a female suicide bomber were arrested over the past 2 months, and it's only now that a gag order has been lifted. According to security sources, the cell members confessed to conspiring to carry out a series of attacks, including ambushing an army bus, transporting troops, and abducting an Israeli soldier. During their arrest, the security forces confiscated a cache of weapons, including a makeshift M16 machine gun, a hunting rifle, ammunition, and bomb-making materials. The terrorists had been planning to use an apartment in Israel inhabited by illegal Palestinian workers to prepare the suicide bomber. They also had made contact with bomb-making experts from Gaza to help them.
Aryeh, I understand that there has also been a great deal of concern in Australia today over what appears to be an attempted terror attack in Sydney. What can you tell us about that?
That's right, Erin. Terror never stops, really. And in Australia's biggest city, a hostage situation has been going on there for the past 16 hours, where a gunman has been holding people inside a cafe in downtown. It's unclear how many hostages are being held, and some reports say that up to 30 are being held. TV footage showed 2 people inside the cafe holding up what appeared to be a black flag with Arabic writing on it. A few of the hostages managed to flee at various points. The whole city center has been shut off and hundreds of security personnel deployed around the cafe. Police say that they are negotiating with the gunman, who is reportedly a bearded man in his early 40s and wore a headband.
Our only goal tonight, and for as long as this takes, is to get those people that are currently caught in that building out of there safely. That remains our #1 priority, and nothing will change.
Australia is in a state of shock, not sure how to deal with this kind of terror incident. Australia's leaders say it was a difficult day that put them to the test, and their Prime Minister Tony Abbott urged calm.
This is a very disturbing incident. I can understand the concerns and anxieties of the Australian people at a time like this, but our thoughts and prayers must above all go out to the individuals who are caught up in this. I can think of almost nothing more distressing, more terrifying than to be caught up in such a situation, and our hearts go out to those people.
The iconic Sydney Opera House was also shut down and evacuated after a suspicious object was found there. Journalists said the city looked like a ghost town and people stayed home or were in virtual lockdown. Even the Jewish community in Sydney went on lockdown, with schools cancelling excursions and maintaining tight security measures. Until now, Australian forces have participated in attacks against Islamic terror in the Middle East, and now Islamic terror may have reached the heart of Australia. The Muslim community reacted with horror to the siege and condemned it. And Australian police are bracing for feared reprisal attacks against Muslims. For the record, Defence Minister Moshe Ya'alon said he offered Australia Israeli help if they requested it. Finally, popular Israeli father and son singers Benny and Gad Elbaz were in the cafe a few moments before the incident and told Israel Radio that it was a Hanukkah miracle that they left in time. Erin?
All right, thank you for both those reports. The Palestinian leadership has decided to submit a draft resolution to the United Nations Security Council this Wednesday that would set a deadline for Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank. At the same time, Ramallah is backing down from threats to discontinue security cooperation with Israel following the death of Palestinian Minister Ziad Abu Ain. The Palestinian UN resolution demands that Israel leave the West Bank and East Jerusalem by November 2016 and calls on the UNSC to recognize the Palestinian state within the pre-1967 lines. France, Britain, and Germany are reportedly discussing an alternative proposal. The Israeli government intends to rebuff any UN Security Council resolution that attempts to impose an agreement on Israel. That's the word from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu upon his departure for Rome ahead of today's meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Kerry. Netanyahu said that Israel opposes any moves to set a time frame for a withdrawal that is not negotiated with the Palestinians within the context of a peace agreement. Jerusalem is counting on Washington to exercise its veto power to stop the Ramallah resolution, while the Palestinians are lobbying for the U.S. to allow the motion to pass. Netanyahu said in recent years the government has repeatedly rejected attempts to dictate terms that would harm Israel's security and which do not conform to true peace. If there are dictates, he continued, we will rebuff them as we would any effort that would bring terror into our homes. Kerry's previous U.S. brokered peace negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians collapsed in April. Since that time, the Palestinians have made a series of unilateral efforts to gain recognition of statehood at European parliaments and now at the United Nations as well. Celebrations of the 27th anniversary of the founding of Hamas continue in Gaza, where some 2,000 armed men paraded truck-mounted rockets through the streets of Gaza City. It was the terror group's biggest show of force since August, and at the end of the 50-day conflict with Israel. The Islamist organization demonstrated bravado after taking a pounding during the fighting, when more than 2,000 Palestinians were killed, including an estimated 1,000 of its gunmen. Speaking at the gathering, Hamas officials warned that another confrontation is inevitable unless tens of thousands of homes damaged during the conflict are rebuilt soon. International donors have pledged some $5 billion to rebuild Gaza, but Palestinians have been disappointed with the slow pace of reconstruction. Israeli defense officials say that Hamas has been test-firing rockets into the Mediterranean in recent weeks, and that the Air Force was scrambled yesterday when Hamas flew a drone over the parade that featured vehicles loaded with long-range missiles and launchers capable of firing multiple rockets. During the rally, Hamas leaders also praised Iran for supplying them with money and weaponry. Turning now to the elections, and it's not official yet, but it looks like Eli Yishai will be leaving Shas to form his own party, and that he is not the only member of Knesset to leave his political home. The Labour Party, meanwhile, has approved the merger with Hatznua. Here with the latest is IBA's political correspondent, Eli Wogelenter.
They tried and tried, but in the end, not even the Shas Council of Torah Sages could persuade Eli Yishai to stay with the Sephardi Haredi Party and run together with Aryeh Deri. Rabbis close to the two Shas MKs met this morning in a last-gasp attempt to prevent a split. According to reports, however, the meeting was unsuccessful, and Yishai is now definitely leaving to form his own party. He is expected to make the formal announcement later this evening, and his people have already registered the new party under the name Aran, which was the name by which the late party leader Rabbi Ovadia Yosef was known. If that isn't accepted, they've chosen the name Yachad, or Together. His party is expected to get 5 seats, according to polls, leaving Shas with just 4. The marriage of Labour and Hatznua is now official. Labour's Central Committee met at the Tel Aviv Fairgrounds last night to approve merging with Tzipi Livni's Hatznua party and to a rotation agreement. Livni is guaranteed slots 2, 8, 16, 21, 24, and 25 on the Labour list, and an additional slot was reserved for a security figure who is expected to be Kadima head Shaul Mofaz. The rest go to Labour candidates who will now compete in primaries set for January 13th. The Central Committee also authorized party leader Isaac Herzog to choose what name Labour will run under in the election. Herzog said that a government led by him would be an alternative to Netanyahu's government of intimidation and stagnation, and he vowed to lead a dramatic change in Israel, repeating the word upheaval over and over again, and declaring, yes, yes, I will replace Netanyahu, I will replace Bibi, and we will replace the Likud. One person not running in the Labour primary, MK Avishai Bravman, announced today that he was taking himself out of the race, but that he would continue to support the Labour Party. Meanwhile, another MK is leaving his party, but he's not leaving politics. MK Yoni Shetbon announced last night that he is splitting off from Bayit Yehudi, saying the party had not done enough to help the weakest sector of the population. His announcement came on the heels of a 2-hour meeting between Bayit Yehudi leader Naftali Bennett and Tkuma head Uri Ariel, trying to head off a split in the party. Shetbon is rumored to be aligning himself with Eli Yishai's new party. And in Likud, a small defeat for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Likud court has rejected Netanyahu's motion to hold an early primary on December 31st, overruling the vote last week by the Likud Central Committee. Netanyahu's plan was to hold elections for party head and for the party's Knesset list on the same day. Likud Central Committee Chairman Danny Danon said that he accepted the court's decision, and that elections for party head will take place as planned on December 31st, and the Likud's Constitution Committee will set a new date for primaries. The court also shot down the vote to allow Netanyahu to reserve spots on the Likud list for his personal choices. The petition to the party court was filed by Moshe Feiglin, one of Netanyahu's competitors for the leadership of the Likud. Aaron?
Thanks for that report. Over 30 employees at the Ramat Gan City Municipality were arrested by the National Police Fraud Squad in a raid launched by over 100 investigators beginning at 5 o'clock this morning. Senior officials were among those detained as part of a months-long undercover investigation by the Lahav 443 crime unit into alleged infractions committed during the last municipal elections in October 2013. Charges include suspected bribery, fraud, breach of trust, money laundering, and tax evasion. Police believe that the officials provided municipal jobs in return for help during the election campaign. Investigators say that they also suspect criminal elements are involved in the running of Ramat Gan City Hall. Good news from Acting Minister for Environmental Protection, Ophir Akunis, who says that the threat of contamination to the Gulf of Eilat from last week's massive leak from the Eilat-Ashkelon oil pipeline has been eliminated. During a briefing to the cabinet, Akunis said that 5 million liters of crude oil have been pumped out of the area, and he believes the disaster has been fully contained. Regarding the considerable damage done to the Evrona Nature Reserve, the environmental minister says that he will present a comprehensive rehabilitation plan for cabinet approval next week and that the reserve will remain closed until further notice due to concern for public health. Returning now to election news, and joining us is political reporter for the Voice of Israel, Raul Whitliff. Thank you for coming in this afternoon.
Hi, Aaron.
All right, let's start with the Labor Hatnuah merger, which they've now fully agreed on a list composition, and it would seem that they've all put their egos on the side, and they've done this without much opposition. Do you think that this indicates clear sailing from here on out?
Well, certainly last night at the Labour Party conference where I was there, you could feel the excitement in the room from the members of the Labour Party, and there was an attempt from the leader, Isaac Herzog, to present, I felt, two messages. One, that this union between him and Tzipi Livni is very strong and that together they're going to lead the country. And on the other hand, to present that he really is a strong leader on his own. He gave a very excited speech in which he said there's going to be a political revolution, invoking the words of invoking the election of 1977 when Menachem Begin won what was called then a political revolution.
It was.
And it seems like, at least from within the party, that there is support behind this deal, and they are moving forward towards what could be a close race.
All right, let's talk about on the right. There still appears to be a crisis in the factions that make up Abait UD. Do you think that Ministers Naftali Bennett and Uri Ariel are going to be able to work out their differences, or is a split on its way there too?
Well, again, these differences, it's unclear whether there is an ideological background or it's something personal. As the lists are being formed, the lists for the Knesset, where every party puts forward a list of up to 120 people, there's back and forth about which factions will get the top spots, and Uri Ariel certainly wants to show that he's a strong force within the Bayit Yehudi by receiving a number of top spots. And at this stage, it might seem like they might end up working it out and staying together. What's clear is that Uri Ariel has more to lose. Naftali Bennett's part as leader of the Bayit Yehudi is doing very well at the moment. They've managed to stay out of what's been seen by some as the political games that have caused the election, and he's in a strong position at the moment. Uri Ariel, it's unclear how well his party would do, even if he were to join with Eli Yishai. He would certainly not be in the same position of power as he is at the moment.
All right, now let's discuss Shas. We have party leader Aryeh Deri and former party leader Eli Yishai. Eli Yishai looks like he's about to leave and form his own party. What would this mean for the political map?
Well, the question here is not just what would happen if Eli Yishai would leave the party or even Aryeh Deri, but the question is what's happening now that Rabbi Ovadia Yosef is no longer with the party, having passed away a year ago. He founded the party 30 years ago. He was really at the center of it, the spiritual head. And according to most reports, he kept this very tense political rivalry between Eli Yishai and Aryeh Deri at bay. Now that the party is, as it were, without him, him passing away a year ago, that tension has risen clearly. And if Eli Yishai splits, we could see really the end of this political force that Shas has been for the last 30 years, from being a really, in a way, the kingmakers in many of the elections, after elections, choosing who could form the coalition. If both parties are reduced to 4 or 5 seats, we could really see them losing power.
Voice of Israel political reporter Raoul Whitliff, thanks very much for coming in today. Thanks for sharing your insight.
Thank you.
In other news, former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney is slamming the recent Senate intelligence report on the CIA torture of foreign terrorism suspects. Cheney was in office during the immediate aftermath of the 9/11 al-Qaeda terror attacks against the United States in 2001. During an interview on Meet the Press, he defended tactics used at the time, saying that the methods helped to provide information necessary to track down those responsible, as well as safeguard the nation against further attacks. Cheney issued a scathing indictment against the Senate report, saying that it was partisan in nature and severely defective.
The report is seriously flawed. They didn't talk to anybody who knew anything about the program. They didn't talk to anybody who was in the program. The best guide for what, in fact, happened is the one that's the report that was produced by the 3 CIA directors and deputy directors of the CIA when this program was undertaken. And, in fact, it lays out in very clear terms what we did and how we did it. And with respect to trying to define that as torture, I come back to the proposition torture was what the al-Qaeda terrorists did to 3,000 Americans on 9/11. There's no comparison between that and what we did with respect to enhanced interrogation.
An ancient temple in Egypt that was destroyed 3,000 years ago has been restored to its former glory in the West Bank of the Nile in the city of Luxor. A team of European and local archaeologists have reassembled the second of 2 colossal statues of King Amenhotep III, who was the 18th dynasty pharaoh who lived during the first half of the 14th century before the Common Era, and Tutankhamun's grandfather, better known as King Tut. The temple has been underwater for centuries and was rediscovered just 4 years ago. The latest colossus to be reassembled stands 14 meters high. The archaeology team is headed by Hurig Surozian, who's hoping that their artistic collaboration will be able to completely restore the temple within the next 20 years.
First of all, this was a vote to be abandoned. It was lying in the fields and we saved it. Secondly, it's the highest, as I said, of the statues ever standing now. There are others, but they are lying in pieces. And most of all, the time of this king is the highest expansion and the highlight of the Egyptian civilization.
Turning to sports news and soccer, where Maccabi and Hapoel Haifa locked horns in the first derby at the new Sami Ofer Stadium in front of 23,000 fans. It was a night for the Greens from Maccabi to remember, with a 4-0 trouncing of their crosstown Hapoel opponents. It will be most memorable for legendary midfielder Yossi Benayoun, who scored the opening goal in the 4th minute and his first in Israeli league action since 2002 when he headed off for a career in Europe. The returning team captain headed Chen Ezra's cross beyond Hapoel goalkeeper Tirko Kale. Canadian striker Tosaint Richards scored in the 31st minute to bring the score to 2-0. The second half was no better for Hapoel as Maccabi Spanish striker Michel scored in the 73rd minute and Shlomo Abu Khatziara closed the scoring in the 81st minute. Well, the 8-day Hanukkah holiday begins tomorrow night, also known as the Festival of Lights. It's a Jewish commemoration of the rededication of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem during the Maccabean revolt in the 2nd century before the Common Era. Traditional foods such as latkes and sufganiyot, or jelly donuts, and the spinning top known as the dreidel have come to be associated with the holiday, all of which are very familiar to most Jews. But what do non-Jews in the U.S. know about the holiday? The BuzzFeed Media website decided to find out.
My knowledge of Hanukkah is the Disney Channel movie Full Court Miracles.
What I know vaguely about the story, I learned from the Rugrats.
And I know that there's a menorah.
You have to have letters that make
C-H-A-U-N-I-K, Hanukkah, A. Hanukkah celebrates.
Was it when they were like crossing the Red Sea?
They only had like a little bit of oil.
And through the miracle of the Lord, that oil lasted 8 nights.
So that's why everything is fried, I think, and why potato pancakes are the love of my life.
Oh my God, I don't even know how many days it is.
It's like 7 days, right?
I think it's 8 days of Hanukkah.
So there are 12 candles in a menorah.
There are 9 candles on the menorah
Because I think it's like one for every day of the week.
because there's one for every night, and then there's the one master candle that you use to light all of the other ones.
What's a dreidel? I don't know.
Don't know what it means.
Dreidels are big spoons that Jewish people use to collect matzo balls out of the pot.
You spin the dreidel, and then what it falls on, you have to do what it says.
And you get chocolate coins if you win.
You win, or you lose, or you take another turn, or you take the other guy's coins.
I just remember Jewish friends getting presents all week.
Everybody drinks Manischewitz.
Maybe they have a Hanukkah party at the end of it.
They sit around in a circle and they play the guitar.
And I think they leave a seat open for Elijah.
And Adam Sandler is leading the ceremony.
Now taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today lost strength against all major foreign currencies, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up across the board. Here's a look at the mid-afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team tells us it's going to be pretty cold this evening and that the winds will intensify in the north through overnight. But tomorrow we should see fair conditions with an additional slight rise in temperatures. Here's the forecast at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'll be back at this desk tomorrow. Hope to see you then. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.